Welcome back to One Piece Explained. Live action news has been a little slow over the last few weeks, but back in October, Oda made a visit to the Season 2 production, and earlier this week, we got some of the photos from that trip. There are a ton of really fun details in here, and so I want to get right into it, but really quickly, if you're new to the channel or haven't been keeping up with any of the live action breakdowns, be sure to check them out so you can stay up to date with all the latest live action news, and if you like what you see, consider subscribing to the channel. With that said, let's get into it. With these photos came an update on the production itself from Oda, as he went at length about how much he enjoyed what he saw. He also got to meet up with the cast members, new and old, and was further convinced that they were the right people for the job. Surrounding the message itself, however, are a ton of smaller photos that were not shared with the public in full resolution, which is a shame because there are a bunch of little details in here that I think are really interesting. So let's go through each of those photos one at a time. Starting with the leftmost image in the corner, we can see Oda visiting some of the crew members with what may be Jaco Snyman, the head of prosthetics, over here to the left. In front of him is a transponder snail with a curious design. Now, we saw a bunch of these in the set tour video, but most of them look to be for the Marines, except one that we got a brief glimpse of within a quick montage of the various sets. This looks to be the same one featured in this photo here. Now, the big question is, who does this belong to? While it could be an adaptation of the transponder snails that we saw used by Mr. 3 and Mr. 0 on Little Garden, given its presence amongst the Loguetown sets, I'd have to guess that it's one of the shopkeepers. Its drooping eyes and dirty teeth is somewhat reminiscent of the character Raoul, who was the owner of the Gold Roger bar that we saw in the filler episode of the anime. But this is just a wild guess. In that episode, Roger was shown to drink Rhum Clement, an alcohol that exists in our real world. This beverage was adapted in the live action in Season 1 as seen at Party's bar, and it looks like we'll see it again in Season 2. There are a few other bottles in the background, but they're a bit hard to make out due to the quality of the image. However, these two bottles near the front look to be the South Osso mineral water that we saw given to a young Sanji. In hindsight, these bottles can actually be seen in the set tour video in the Loguetown Deli. South Osso is the literal translation of Minami Aso, a village in Kumamoto Prefecture. Now, in front of these bottles are some bands of bills, which we saw in Season 1 as well. The topmost bill features Hideo Rabbitmouth, as first revealed to us in Volume 53's SBS. Over to the right, you can make out the Straw Hat Jolly Roger alongside a few more bottles. This green one here has some text that's a bit hard to read, but you can make out the shape of a few letters that may read U, M, and E, making me wonder if this is supposed to be umeshu, also known as plum wine, an alcoholic beverage that we often see with Dr. Kureha. Moving back over to the left, we get another view of the Doskoi Panda store that we first saw in the set tour video from a few months ago. Now, below that is Oda standing in front of a set piece that's a bit hard to make out, but underneath that photo we have some jarred goods, and at the center is a container which reads Gyoru's Tuna in something. The bottom text looks like it may even read kelp flavored. Gyoru, of course, is the fishmonger from Windmill Village who we first met back in Chapter 1. We saw his presence in the first season as well, with the barrel used by Luffy reading Gyoru's red herring. Another one of these was actually used for the big barrel scene in the finale. Moving below is what looks to be a framed picture of Roger's mustache. This could be a decoration in Gold Roger's bar if they chose to adapt that filler episode, or perhaps this is a more twisted sort of trophy kept by the Marines, since we will be seeing Loguetown during Marine Victory Day, a special holiday celebrating the execution of Gold Roger. Moving on is what may be our very first look at the Whiskey Peak set, as evidenced by the old western-inspired buildings and the cacti. Some photos of the full set being constructed had been floating around a few weeks back, and I can't wait to see how this looks in the show proper. A bit to the right of this photo is a photo of Oda in the kitchen of the Going Merry. There's not too much to talk about here, but one update is that there are now magnets or stickers up on the fridge that were not present in the last season. I like this sort of little detail as it creates the feeling that some time has passed between Season 1 and Season 2, and the ship has become more lived in. On a similar note, you'll notice the plant here on the counter is a bit more lush, perhaps also suggesting the passage of time. This may even be an oregano plant as a way for Sanji to remember Zeph. Now, this photo of what looks to be a banquet of some sorts is a bit interesting. It's definitely easy to write this off as just some sort of catered event for the cast and crew during Oda's visit, but it being located in the center of what seems to be a forested area gives me some reason to wonder whether or not this could be part of the Little Garden set. After all, the alleged casting description for Miss Golden Week did mention a tea party of horrors, so maybe that's what we're looking at here. Besides this photo is another of Oda in the wig department that we first saw during the set tour video. In my breakdown, we went through all of the various wigs and who they are for, which included a few surprises that you may have missed, so be sure to check that out if you're interested. In this photo, we can make out the Mihawk facial hair as previously discussed, but more interestingly to the left is the wig for Mr. 3. It's so cool to see that they fully committed to this wacky hairstyle, and I can't wait to see how this will look on Daniel Dastmalchian. Heading back up, we have a photo of Oda dining, along with another shot of the costume department with this floor full of costumes for extras that we saw in that set tour video. Above it is another photo of Oda inside the Mary, though this time we see him in the bedroom that was used by Zoro after his duel with Mihawk in Season 1. So while we got a hint of what Drum Castle would look like from the outside a few months ago when we saw the concept art for Drum Island, this photo here brings us our first look at the interior of the castle. There is a ton to talk about in this photo alone, ranging from potential plot hints to even what may be a new tease of Chopper, so let's not waste any time. This scene looks to be taking place in a banquet hall within the castle. No such room existed in the source material, at least from what we've seen, with the closest thing being the main lobby area, so it would not surprise me if this is the main setting for a lot of the conflict that we'll see in the Drum Island episodes. In the back is a huge mantle or fireplace-like structure in the shape of a hippo, but more specifically, a woolly hippo or white walkie. This is the animal that Wapol had as a pet in the source material and also serves as his animal resemblance according to his Vivre card. I wonder if this sort of nod to the white walkie within the castle's design will serve as a replacement for the actual animal's presence, sort of akin to how Richie the Lion was referred to but never shown in full back in Season 1. Also, given the idea that this may be the main setting for the climax of Drum, I could see this being where Wapol's Royal Drum Crown 7-shot Tin Tyrant cannon is stored. The walls are adorned with several crests and shields depicting various animals. Here you can see some sort of ram, and over here some sort of fish. These sorts of decorations were also present in the source material as well. All around this photo, you can spot various men in green jackets and hoods. These are of course Wapol soldiers. The table itself is adorned with various foods that are a bit hard to make out. You can spot an octopus, some sort of cow or boar, and some shanks of meat. Given how many references to the Shokugeki no Sanji chapters there were in Season 1, I could see this even being the huge revolver mutton steak. Now, the presence of such a large feast in this setting could suggest that Wapol is entertaining someone or some people in particular. For a while now, we've speculated that Baroque Works may be integrated into the Drum Island arc in some way, perhaps even working together with Wapol as an antagonistic force. In the set tour video, we got a glimpse of a vaguely familiar Jolly Roger that seemed to be a blend of Baroque Works and Wapol's, so I could see there being some sort of truth to this kind of plot development. Furthermore, on the slate or clapperboard in the foreground, you can spot two devil fruits. These are the flower fruit and the munch fruit as depicted in the One Piece magazine. Now, with both of these being two major devil fruits introduced in this season, it would not be too shocking to see them together on this sort of thing, but it does make you wonder if this slate is specifically for the Drum episodes. If so, then it would very well could mean that Baroque Works, or at the very least Nico Robin, has a role to play here on Drum Island. A few months ago, we got the very first tease for Chopper's Brainpoint design, but here, right above the flower fruit, is a strange figure behind this candelabra. It's difficult to place exactly due to the low quality, but I believe that this may be our very first look at Chopper in his heavy point. It's not clear if this is some sort of stand-in puppet or an actual actor in prosthetics, but the facial features remind me a lot of the early depictions of Chopper in this form, with the pronounced mouth shape. You can see some tufts of hair poking out atop, and of note, this person or stand-in towers above the soldiers beside him, just as Heavy Point would. And in the case that this is an actor, I should mention that a while back, we got the speculated actor for Chopper's Heavy Point with Gavin Gomez. Now ultimately, while this does remind me a lot of Chopper, I'm not 100% sure, so I would love to know what you think about this in the comments. Below this photo, we have Oda walking into the Loguetown set. In the higher quality version of this photo, we can see more of the Atlas-esque statue at the center that we saw in the set tour video, and from this, we have confirmation that the ring being held up reads the beginning and the end, which is of course the epithet of Loguetown, as well as the name of the first episode of this second season. Over to the right are a bunch of familiar posters, including a few of Buggy the Clown, and once again we can spot some reused assets from the first season, as this flyer promoting the town fete is very similar to the one that we saw in Syrup Village. It looks like Oda got his own chair with his title as executive producer, and behind it is the chair belonging to Nick Louie, co-executive producer. We have another photo with Oda and what may be Jacko Snyman looking at some sort of screen. The details in the background are a bit hard to make out, though this may be a Trafalgar Law Figure Arts action figure on the desk, given the color scheme and pose. Of course, we then have a photo of Oda with the two new cast members, Lyra Abova and Charith Rashandran, and a bit to the right is a photo of the Sunny's deck. Moving down a bit, we also have this photo of Oda with Iñaki, and you can spot some of the prosthetics used for the Fishman from Season 1 in the background. Now, we also saw the prosthetics for Arlong and Kurobi in an additional photo from the set tour with Jeff Ward. I'd assume we're seeing all of these here in these Season 2 promotional photos as just assets that they kept on hand for the production, but it would be really cool to see the Arlong Pirates return in Season 2 in some capacity. Now, this next photo features an issue of an Emmy magazine, perhaps in an effort to manifest a potential Emmy nomination for this season in the future, but more specifically, this is issue 7 from 2022, featuring Jeff Bridges on the cover. Now, I haven't read this entire issue front to back, so there may be some mention of the One Piece live action series in there at some point, but from what I've gathered, there is a page for Bridgerton, which is of course the show from where Charita Chandran is most well known for in her role of Edwina Sharma. Beside the magazine is some sort of award that I can't really put my finger on. The design is a bit reminiscent of Sanji's lighter, I'll admit, but if anyone knows what this may be, please let us know in the comments. Now, our final 2 photos in this collage features the Going Merry, and in one of them is Oda standing beside Iñaki. Here, Iñaki is dressed in Luffy's outfit from the chapter 140 color spread with the red t-shirt and pink shorts. We saw from the set tour video that Usopp would have a purple bandana in this season, which is another design from this very color spread, so perhaps we can expect the rest of the Straw Hats outfits as well. Also, given the trees that we see in the background, I suspect that this may be part of the Little Garden set, which works very well with the overgrown jungle vibes of the chapter 140 color spread. And finally, one of the additional photos shared shows Oda in front of stage 1. You can spot the Logtown Tram Company vehicle that we saw in the set tour video, as well as a giant panda shop in the background that we first saw in the courtyard of Kaya's mansion back in season 1. And there we have it. That's about it for all of the things that I wanted to talk about with Oda's set visit. It was a lot of fun going through these photos, and I can't imagine how great of an experience it must have been for Oda himself to see his world come to life before his very eyes. I can't wait until we get more news about season 2, so if you enjoyed this video or any of my other videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can get more of my breakdowns on the latest live action news as soon as they come out. What was your favorite part of these photos, and what are you looking forward to the most? Do you think that actually is Chopper in the background? I'd love to know your thoughts on all of these down in the comments. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching, stay safe, and I hope to see you in the next one.